Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, April 15th, 2022. This is Real Estate Talk, TGIF number 201, 201. That's 201 episodes over the past, almost 4 years. I've got the great Mel Oliveri with me, contractor, investor. Thanks so much for coming on today. And I can't wait to talk to you about investing and everything that's going on in our markets today in 2022. We'll be right back to start this great broadcast. If I can get my hand working over here as I control everything at once. Here we go. We'll be right back.
Real estate agent, are you looking to acquire clients consistently so you can grow your business and your income to live a great lifestyle? This is Dave Finale and the RE Skill Builder podcast.
Good morning, everybody. Dave Finale here with Carmelo Oliveri. Mel, thank you so much for being on. And Mel, before we get started and we start getting into a conversation, I ask everybody the same question when we start. And the question is, do you know what TGIF stands for?
Thank God it's Friday.
Well, that is really usually it. And don't feel bad. Most people don't get it right. It's thank God it's finale. That's it. It's the last thing. Hey, finale, here I am. Thank God it's finale. And so, man, hey, man, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Being here, you helped me out by being here. I really appreciate it. So, Carmelo, you've been in the real estate business, 20 years plus. You've been an investor, a buyer, a flipper of single-family homes, multifamily homes, 3 to 6 to 12. Now you're doing many more doors at one time. Real estate syndicator, et cetera. But how did you get started? I mean, 20 years, that's a long time for most, right? So how did you get started? And how did it all happen and work for you?
It all started. It's crazy because I was a school teacher for 6 years, I believe I taught. 6 years, and I was teaching in Hoboken. I did my student teaching in Hoboken, and then the next year I got hired in Jersey City, and that was in 2001. So if anyone's familiar with Jersey City, New Jersey, I'd say timing is essential in real estate, right? So I got into Jersey City real estate market back in 2001, and the prices of homes then were, $75,000 for a 3-family. I bought 6 families for $125,000. Sellers would pay closing costs. People just wanted to get rid of their real estate in Jersey City. Nobody wanted to live there. So I started buying real estate there. And of course, coming from an old school Italian mentality, everyone's pessimistic. Oh, why are you buying over there? It's dangerous. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. And here we are 20 years later, and my real estate's probably worth millions and tens of millions of dollars in Jersey City right now. So actually, that's how I started. Actually, the way it actually worked was I drove one of my students home from a basketball game, and I pull up to the house, and I'm like, "This is where you live?" I'm like, "This thing looks like it's ransacked." And he's like, "Yeah, my landlord doesn't fix anything." And I was like, "These poor kids have to live like this." So I just started buying real estate out there and started renting, giving people quality homes, really. So it boils down to just, providing a service. It's like any business, start providing a service, right? And I did the same thing with real estate. It's like, you need a good place to live. Here, we're going to fix everything. We're going to take care of you. You take care of me. And it's been like that for 20 years. So I started buying in Jersey City. From Jersey City, I went into the Newark market. And again, people are like, why are you buying in Newark? You're out of your mind? Right. And here we are, I think a 4-family in Newark just sold for $940,000 on the MLS. And again, I was buying them there for $75,000, $100,000, $200,000. And the market just went through the roof right now, as you know, in this market. So we accumulated over, 300 doors in New Jersey. We bought and sold a bunch. And then also I used to buy and flip multifamilies, right? So in Jersey City, I might have sold probably a good 100, 150 doors plus flipping them. I would buy them, fix them, and flip them. And the only reason I did that is because I hedged the risk, right? If I bought it and flipped it, I made money. If I couldn't sell it and the shit hit the fan, I could have rented it out. So it was always a win-win situation. So as a real estate investor, you always want to put yourself in that situation as a win-win situation. And that's really how it started, man. It's just timing was perfect to get in those markets, kind of like buying Hoboken in the 70s, right? I tell people now, it's like now we're at the peak of the market. Interest rates going up. Is it the perfect time to buy? I don't know. But you're just going to timing will tell what's going to happen in the next few months or years.
I love that what you just said. Is it the right time to buy? I don't know. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is a seasoned investor, a seasoned real estate guy that knows investing backwards and forwards, has done very well with it. And just like everybody else, I don't know, but you've probably had some winners, some losers, right?
Oh, yeah.
But the answer to himself was, I don't know, but it's what you do for a living, right, Mel? And that's where you're going.
It's what I do. It's what I've been doing for 20 years, and, you look at it today, and, I just want to go back to winners and losers because I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on flips, especially on multifamily homes, especially when that market crashed in 2007. And you just got to keep in mind as a real estate investor, if you build that solid foundation of cash flow, you'll make it out of the storms. That's what it boils down to. I've seen a lot of people lose a lot of money when that market crashed. Why? Because they're just flipping single family homes. Right. They're just flipping single family homes. And when the market crashed, all their money's invested in single family homes. And then what? You got nothing left. So if you build a solid cash flow foundation, you can pretty much do anything. You could take on different risks because in the month you got another $30,000-$40,000 coming in. So if you lose $100,000, $200,000, it is what it is. There's nothing you can do. But if you're losing $200,000-$300,000, you have nothing coming in the next month, or the market corrects itself, you got nothing coming in. So it's very important that you have that, that set foundation in real estate as a real estate investor. And then,
So yeah, no.
And then back to timing now. If you look at the way I look at it, COVID happened, they printed all this money, and you go back to the 70s into the 80s, there was a huge inflationary period during that time frame. I think this is like a second inflationary period that's coming. So is it a good time to buy? I'm really watching the Fed and what they're going to do. Right. We're in a Fed economy. So to me, it's like, all right, they're the decision makers at this point. If they're going to spike rates to, 9-10%, we're going to have a huge correction in the pricing of homes. But if they slowly give it to us, then it'll adjust slowly,
Well, Mel, you are obviously a learned investor because you know about the 80s and the inflationary period that we had. When I first got into real estate myself in the late 70s, I started working with 18 to 20% interest rates. Wow. So, and the thing I keep telling people is that people still bought homes. Yeah. When I did a construction takeout, when I did a permanent takeout loan on my construction loan on a house I built in 92, I was so happy to get 7.5%, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like really amazing. And people don't understand, we had that crash, which was, I believe it was man-made. I believe the late 80s was man-made as well.
Yeah.
By some things that we don't need to get into because that's politics and all that crap. But, understanding markets and understanding where it goes, it allows you to not get and build from a cocky position, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So we see, I want to hit this one point. We talked about this before we went on the air. We talked about real estate agents. Now you started getting into this, but you also are a real estate agent. Talk to me about how you work that together.
The way it started was I started as an investor, and I was buying and flipping the multifamily homes in Jersey City. And I was like, well, you know what? I have a master's degree. I think I get my real estate broker's license. So I was like, I'm gonna get my license. So I really got it to save money. I didn't want to keep paying commissions and stuff. And so I joined an office, and I'm like, oh, hold on a second. This guy's got 140 agents. He gets 30% of all these deals. That's like being the mafia boss. And coming from an old school family, I was like, hey, this is a legal way of making good money. So then I got my broker's license, and I started New Jersey's first virtual real estate office back in 2009. So like everything is now with zip docs and all this stuff that's e-signatures. I was doing that long before anybody else was doing it. And I remember it was EXP CEO. No, it wasn't. Yeah, EXP CEO and me on stage at what the hell was it called? The real estate con that they had here in New York. And he started doing the virtual stuff. I started doing the virtual stuff. But then I got more heavily into real estate investing. So really just started to save money. And then I also kind of coached others throughout, to real estate invest and whatnot. So it kind of worked out really well that way.
Right. And you and I have been like passing in the night. I mean, you talked about the tech right back in the 2009 and stuff. And I believe that could have been, depending on what kind of organizations you're trying to build. I had a cloud-based system for my brokerage before anybody had it. Yeah. And that was a detriment really to my business because people didn't get it.
Exactly.
They were afraid of it.
Yeah.
For you, that might have been an advantage because it kept a lot of people away from you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
but as we move forward, okay, so a real estate agent wants to be an investor, or they get into real estate to be an investor. Is that the right way to go or the wrong way to go?
To me, investing is a necessity. You just need to know how to do it, right?
Right.
So you can get agents that make $200,000-$300,000 a year, and they blow $300,000 a year. It's all a mindset. So as an agent, if you're going to come in as an agent, you got in a seller's market, you sell. So what you want to do in a seller's market, you want to buy and flip. You want to do that because that's what the market's calling for. In a buyer's market, you want to buy. So if you need, the agents need to understand, what markets they're working with, especially newbie agents now. All they see is a seller's market. They see their friends, listing a house on Monday, selling it on Friday. Hey, made $8,000, $10,000, $20,000 in a week. So they're seeing that now. But they need to realize and educate themselves. I wasn't around for the inflationary period in the 70s and 80s. I was born in 77. I was shitting my diaper when that happened. But I had to go back and learn that, right? And then when the market happened in 07, 08, I had to go back and see what caused that. So you need to educate yourself first before you become a real estate investor. And I was investors, I was like, oh, I'm buying and flipping a house in this town. I'm like, what's the absorption rate? What the fuck's that mean? What do you mean? You don't even know what that means when you're flipping a house? You know what I mean? What's the average rent in this market? What's the average rent in the market? What's the hold time for an apartment that's vacant? What's the vacancy rate in that market? What are you talking about? I was like, if you don't even know these basic terminology, you shouldn't even be a real estate investor. So become a salesperson, save your money, and then I told them, I was like, if you're renting right now, go buy yourself a 3-4 family house, live in it, learn to live with people, learn how to manage it, learn how to make repairs, and then you start scaling from there. You're not going to be a millionaire in 2 years, that's for sure. Not in this business.
Yeah. One of the things I really want to emphasize is that, Mel, you learned it from the ground up as I did. We both learned it with our hands getting dirty, cleaning up all kinds of shit, and sometimes literally shit. And that's how I started.
Yeah, you're right.
In the late 70s, we didn't have a lot of porta-johns anywhere, so the Masons would find a bucket somewhere. But I digress. So we learned from the ground up. We learned how to do stuff, right?
Yeah.
I am sure that you and I, there's not one thing that we can't do in a house. One thing we may not want to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's not one thing that we can't tell a contractor how to do something.
Yeah.
And they look at us like, how'd you know how to do that? It's called experience. It's called getting dirty and doing it all and learn from the ground up. I mean, paying dues, everything else. The one thing you said about buy that 3-family, live in it, learn how to manage it, deal with tenants. I've dealt with tenants for 42 years. Now I can honestly say I don't have to do that any longer. I just don't want to.
Yeah.
But you learn a lot about people. You learn a lot about human nature, and it's really important to know that too. So we get over to the investing part, the buying and flipping. Is there a list of things that you look at when you're thinking about flipping and what you're looking for in a property?
When I first started, I was kind of doing a lot of just cosmetic stuff, in and out kind of deals.
Right. Okay.
Because they're easier to, as a beginner, that's what you want to get into. You want to find something that's, spackle paint, kitchen cabinets, and you're out of there. And then as we grew, we started doing attic levels. Then we started doing new construction. We did some condo conversions. So as you scale, you kind of learn more and more. And you build teams along the way, and that's how I kind of started the construction team. Also, is we started doing smaller deals, we got into bigger deals, and then we started doing new construction. I was like, what? And of course, contractors like, I'll be there Monday. Okay, which Monday? Because then they never show up on time. So I just like, at this point, I just start building my own team, and that's what we did. We just scaled from there and even started our own construction team. But yeah, usually as for looking for deals, once it hits the MLS, it's kind of tough to find a deal,
right?
Because everyone just in this market goes into a bidding war. In a buyer's market, you have the pick of the litter. So again, it just really goes down to what market you're in and how to strategize in that market to get the deals. So
right. No, exactly. And one of the things that I used to do is people would say, they bring me 3, 4, 5, 6 different deals, and I would always say no. They said, why do you keep saying no? Because it's just not right for me. you have to be patient, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to be patient when you're looking for stuff. You just can't buy something that might look good. You got to move on. And one thing I want to emphasize too that you said, and it's really important for every real estate agent and investor, you need to know your numbers, right? Yeah. Absorption rates. You need to know what's selling, what's not selling. Why is it not selling? Yeah. And that's real estate 101, really. Yeah. That's your first week in real estate. Go out and start looking at homes. Go out and figure out where the price is, where it is, why it is, right? It's really, really, really important. Whether it's a single family or a multifamily, still the same thing. But go out and know what's on the market.
Yeah, they need to learn. I remember my parents going on every Sunday going to open houses just because they just want to go for open houses. So I've been looking at homes for my entire life. So that's how agents go out there, find out what's happening. And now with the COVID thing, what's very important in the COVID thing, at home office, right? Or you have the sandwich generation, having that first, master bedroom on the first floor for the in-laws. So stuff like that you can add to a home if you're flipping it is a huge value add for an investor. So if you start learning things like that and seeing what the market has to offer and what you have to offer in a flip, that can determine between an extra $20,000, $30,000, $100,000 profit if you understand what's happening in the market. So,
so what I know we're talking about flips a little bit, and the question I have for you is, what are typical mistakes that people will make?
I think the biggest mistake coming from a contractor's point of view is they hired the wrong contractor, or they go with the cheapest guy, thinking they're going to save money, and then eventually they're going to learn the hard way that the guy either took off or whatever the case may be. Or another big mistake is they give the contractor too much money, up front. That's usually a contractor's a make or break the deal. That's what I tell everybody. And another one, they don't do the numbers. They're like, oh, okay, I'm buying it for $400,000, it's going to resell for $500,000. But they don't take account into closing costs when you purchase it. Right. You have your carrying costs, you have your construction costs, you have your overages, because there's always overages. No, I've been 20 years, I've always had overages, no matter how many times I estimate a deal.
Me too. Me too.
You have your resale closing costs, you have your capital gains. So is it really worth it? If you're making, $10,000 in 6 months, I can make that flipping burgers at Burger King. So if you don't know how to analyze those numbers, a deal might look good, but really realistically, it's not a deal at all. So
okay. So we're in 2022, and 2020 was pandemic, and there was like this hesitation in the market for everything. And then people figured it out, right? They figured out what to do, how to do it. Some of them, are going to stick doing that method. Some aren't. I already know that many people are not going to do anything virtual anymore because they're done with it. I mean, look what we're doing here. We're on a product called StreamYard, but I believe this is a great way for us to get our message across and to help people, which is what this is all about. So, but a lot of people are zoomed out and they just don't want to do it. So we're in 21. What a year, right? Multiple offers everywhere. Then at the beginning of the year, you said you watching the Fed. The Fed started getting out of the bond market to a point, which is one of the reasons our interest rates are going up. Mm-hmm. As we move forward in 2022, is there any trend that you've already seen? And if so, what is it? And if not, what are you looking for?
Well, I'm looking at inflation right now because you have the government that prints money, that's inflation. You have supply shortage inflation. So you have multiple ways of this inflationary market that we're in. So I think that's going to be a determining factor on what's going to happen in the future, because if they raise rates, then that just makes things, and plus inflation, that just makes things more unattainable for the average American, right? So, for me, it's great inflation because my real estate went through the roof, my rents are going up. I love inflation, right? But I look at the average Joe who's got maybe, $5,000 in a bank account, and that $5,000 doesn't even exist. It's there, but that thing's gonna be wiped out so fast in the next few months from food shopping and gas and rent increases and stuff like that. So I have to jump out my bubble, right, that I'm in, and be like, okay, what's the average Joe doing and what's happening in their life? Right. And I think that inflation is going to be a huge factor in that. And then number two, I guess, obviously they're watching the Fed and what they're going to do with the rates, because you print this kind of, you print up 1/3 entire money supply in 1 year, something's going to give. Just a matter of when is it going to give. That's all.
Well, you know what? Is it going to give? But how is it going to give? Are we going to see 2008 and 9 again? Or are we going to see 1988, 89, 90? What's it going to look like?
It's going to look like the 80s, I think. You go back in the 70s, my dad bought a house for 3-family in Bergen County for $75,000. And then you go into the 80s and that same house is literally double the price, So I think you're going to see that coming in. But again, that boils down to the Fed. If the Fed slowly increases the rates, people adapt to the change. But if they blindside us, okay, 0.5%, and the end of next year we're at 9%, that's going to have a detrimental impact on our entire real estate market.
But just as an aside question, what do you think that does to the real estate agent business?
What's that?
What do you think it does to the actual business of being a real estate agent?
It's gonna wipe out everyone who's not versed in real estate. I think I did better sales in 06, 07 than I did in this market, because to me it's like I'm competing with some guy just blowing smoke over people's behind instead of educating a seller, right?
So right.
And it's like, okay, well, he told you you'll sell it, and then market sells it. The market's gonna be like, yeah, no problem, sell it. The market does what it does.
Right.
But those guys are not going to last when it's a buyer's market. Those guys are gone. They've made $200,000-$300,000 a year. They spent $200,000-$300,000 a year, and they're back to flipping burgers in a few years. So if they're not learning real estate and how to educate their clients the real way, those guys are gone. So, and it happens every cycle, right? We've seen it happen back in 07, and it's going to happen all over again now. I remember people with buses and billboards and in Jersey City. Yeah, this guy. I haven't seen that guy in 20 years. I don't know what happened to that guy. So a lot of people like that's like they just get wiped out if they're not investing their money.
You're absolutely right about sales and stuff now. I mean, I work with all different types of agents and all different values of agents. I'm working with the top agents all over the country, and a team that does about 300 million last year said to me, he says, you know what? Sellers really don't care about all the great stuff that we do and how great we are. Yeah. They just know that they can sell it like this. Yeah. So what's it going to cost you?
I can get a listing. I can get a listing saying I'm going to put balloons up for open house, and they're like, "Oh, really? Great. Okay, yeah." So you're like, a balloon's going to sell a fucking house? You know what
I mean? I could go off on that one for a while for my brokerage.
So it's like, okay, great.
I didn't have helium on a weekend. I got so much trouble. Anyway, but all right. So we've talked about what we're thinking about is going to happen with everything that's going on. I want to get into the next thing of the real estate syndication, the real estate investing that you're doing, and you're doing extensively. Talk to me about the structure of what a real estate syndication does and your company, Allied Capital Management.
Yeah. So the last year, what we chose to do is, New Jersey's, the market here is just completely out of control right now. You got all these people just dumping so much cash into New York and New Jersey for investment properties. So I was like, all right, let's go on to the Midwest. And I bought a mobile home park out in the Midwest. And we bought it with our own cash because, it's the first time doing something out of state. And it's going really well so far. Can't complain. We bought it for $440,000. It's 66 lots. And we're rebuilding, we're slowly bringing in new homes and renting them out or selling them or seller financing. And I was like, this is a great model because I don't have to be there, every week. I have an on-site manager that oversees the park. We have our teams that go out there for landscaping, plumbing, and all that stuff. And having that many units allows us to hire people to do things, right? So, for example, if I bought a 3-family here in New Jersey, and it's my first property or second property or third property even, I would have to go there and do these things myself because I can't hire people to do stuff like that. Right. So I was like, all right, so let's try, we did that model. It's worked out great for us. I was like, you know what? Let's do the syndication. And what the syndication is for our next property is basically grouping like-minded investors to, basically invest in a deal that cash flows, right? Right. So, or you turn around, you make it perform better, and you turn around and sell it and refile or sell the property. And that's how the investors get their returns. So basically we'll group 10 or 15 investors, $50,000 to $200,000 each. We take that money, and we go buy, 100, 200 unit property. So for example, the one we're doing right now, we're under contract in a 88 unit in Illinois and a 30 unit in the same town. So it's 118 units total. And we're acquiring that property for $2.8 million, 2.8 plus the 700. So it's like 3 and change, 3 point something million dollars for the two. We're averaging about $27,000 a door. Okay. And the rent is about $750 a month. So just right off the top of my head, I already know that's double-digit returns. So we're buying that. We're going to stabilize it. We bring in the investors. We're all like-minded. I was like, listen, this deal the way I like to do my real estate is cash flow. Okay. And I want to keep it long-term. And there's investors say, I want to get in a deal, but in 5 years, I want to cash out my money or sell the property or whatever, cash out my money, get my returns on that. I told my investors, that's not what we're looking to do. We want to keep this property 10, 15, 20 years in our portfolio. We might refinance year 4 and 5 and recoup the majority of our investment, but this property is going to stay in our portfolio for cash flow. Because if we're at $750 now per unit and inflation obviously is here, and in 5-10 years, I'm getting $1,000 per year. That's $118,000 a month for $3.2 million acquisition. That's a no-brainer. So we just group the investors, say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to enjoy the tax benefits of a cost segregation. We're going to enjoy the tax benefits of the depreciation and stuff like that as a group, depending on the shares that we own. And really, it's just a matter of working as a team to build a real estate portfolio. And I'm at the helm. I've been doing this for 20 years. Right. I have a construction background. I have the management background. For example, one of the properties had a structural problem. Nothing crazy when we did the inspection. But of course, everyone's like, oh my God, the thing's going to collapse. I go out there. I'm like, we got an estimate for $24,000 from from a contractor. And I get out there. I'm like, this shouldn't cost me more than $5,000. So right. I flew my team out there for $1,000. They fixed it. I flew them back. I'm like, it cost me cheaper to do that than to hire somebody. So stuff like that gets to help the actual investors and myself in the portfolio to save a lot of money and get better returns. So my background is property management, construction, and stuff like that. My other partner who came in on the syndication part, he's been 30 years as a bank underwriter for Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Valley National Bank now. And his background is the bank says, hey, can we fund this deal? He says yes or no. So if he's basically underwriting a deal, he knows if it's a good deal or not. So that's his background. And then at that point, it's just a matter of finding the deals, pitching it to our investors. They say, okay, Mel, I'm in for 100, 200, 300,000. We group the money and we buy a property, so much easier that way. Because, so much liquidity out there today, right? Right. People have to put their money to work. If they're sitting in the bank at 1% is not going to do you any good.
No, you're not even getting 1% money. You get maybe 0.2%, 0.5% if you're lucky. Yeah, and they're bragging if they're giving you that.
Exactly.
Right? Shit, years ago, man, when I was a kid and growing, you're getting 2, 3, 4, 5% in a savings account.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, I haven't used a savings account in so long. And I started looking at them recently. I said, wow, in a CD, you might get 1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So all right. So you said you're out of state now. You're looking all over. How do you find those deals? I mean, people are going to say, well, you know what? I'd love to do that, but because New Jersey is this, New Jersey is that, because that's where you and I are from, where we're at.
Yeah.
How'd you find the deals in Illinois?
Just brokers. We kind of build rapport with the brokers. So I built like a database of brokers, some deals that we scouted and didn't go, we didn't get the bid. And then we just keep following up with them. For example, the other day, it was a LP, a limited partner. He has $5 million to invest. I got a group of brokers in my email and text message. Hey, listen, one of my LPs, here's the message. Here's the proof of funds. He's got $5 million to invest. I'm looking for maybe a $15 to $25 million asset. And then the guy sent us one yesterday for 186 units. 7 points. They're asking 8.5 million. We underwrote the deal. We came back at 7.7 million. And so I was like, all right, sounds like a plan. So we wrote an LOI and we're waiting to hear back on that. But we got if we get that deal, it's 187 units at 650 to 750 a month. You know, the cash flow is probably $400,000 to $500,000 a year after all debt service. So that's fantastic returns for an asset like that.
Is it important for you, Mel, to know what's going on in the other state, the laws, how things are done? I mean, things are done differently in New Jersey,
Yeah.
right? Talk to me about the importance of that and what you've learned as far as that's concerned.
The most important thing is obviously, you know, is it a tenant or landlord friendly state? So we try to stay in those kind of states that are very landlord friendly.
Right.
And then also we do an MSA search, right? What's happening in the metro area?
Right.
We've got deals. They look great on paper, but you know the population is like 30,000 people. I'm like, you know, it doesn't do me any good. You know, it's like it's a very small market. So we look into like large MSAs. We'll go into like, you know, St. Louis and the surrounding areas. We'll go into like Austin, Texas, and the surrounding areas, like a 45-minute drive from those big, large markets. Because again, whatever's happening in New Jersey and New York is happening in those markets, right? So
Right.
people from Bergen County are moving down to maybe, you know, Monmouth County or whatever the case may be, driving into New York. Same thing happens in those markets. It's no different than happening here. So it's really just looking into deals like that, doing the research. You know, then we say, okay, you know what, this complex is comprised of 100 2-bedroom units and 60 1-bedroom units. We go to apartments.com. What do they rent for in that market? We map out those, and then we map out where our property is. Okay, this, you know, we got 2 buildings within a half a mile radius that are renting for $750. So we can get $750 for these units. So little, you know, the technology is there. It's just a matter of using it, right?
Absolutely.
You know, we Google Earth before I even visit the property. I go to Google Earth. I'm like, okay, let's see where the property is located. I'll do a street view. I'll walk up and down the block, you know. So, you know, technology is there to do all this stuff. I don't have to fly out there the next day to look at the property. I can Google Earth the market. I can Google Earth the area and see what it looks like, you know. So
Yeah.
things like that to make a difference.
The most important thing you've said throughout this whole thing is, and I'm going to keep repeating it, knowing the numbers, and that can relate to knowing what you're looking at, knowing what you're doing. See, all this information, Mel, as you know, it's all available. I mean, rents, for rent.com, apartments.com, whatever you want to do to find out what that investment property is getting. Mm-hmm. And you can bring it from, as you've shown us, from hundreds of units down to 2 or 3 units, right? And it's just really important to do your work and not underthink, right? People say, well, I don't want to overthink it. It's getting this, it's getting that. You can underthink it tremendously and lose your shirt, right?
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. You know, at the end of the day, it's all calculated risk, right? Everything you do is a calculated risk. Investing, everything. So if you know how to calculate, know your numbers, it's very easy. It's not that hard.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So let me give you a couple of scenarios real quick, right? And I'm going to go from little to big. So you got you're a new real estate agent, and you've seen this as I've seen it. New agents coming in, and they're taking phone calls, and they're making phone calls. All of a sudden, they come to you as their broker, as their mentor, and say, "Hey, I have this investor." Mm-hmm. When I hear that, I say, "Okay, let me take a step back," because that always means that someone's saying, "Hey, look, well, if you find me this, I'll do business with you." What should agents watch out for when they hear that line?
When I hear that line, it's like, okay, where's your proof of funds? How serious are you? Send me over REO, a real estate owned, spreadsheet. What do you own now? And then if you're serious, I'll work with you. If you're a tire kicker, don't waste my fucking time. That's basically what I say. You know what I mean? When I was dealing with investors back in the day, now it's like I'm an investor. So if I find a deal, I'm not gonna let you know about it.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. But the thing is, I'm a certified mentor for EXP, and I work with a lot of different new agents. And I'm going to tell you, 70% of them come to me with that line. I'm working with this investor. No, you're really not. Well, I know the owner of this 100-unit building. Great. What does that mean? Yeah,
right? Exactly.
And they aren't doing anything. They aren't going anywhere. So when you go and work with people that are bigger producers, bigger performers in the investment market, is it the same thing that you're looking out for? Money, their REO, everything. Is that what you're looking for as far as everything else is concerned?
You mean like as a broker?
Yeah, as an agent, as a broker.
Well, yeah, what I noticed is a lot of the newer brokers in the commercial space, you know, the way I pitch myself to them, it's like I show them everything. Here's my bank statements. Here's my REO. Here's my real estate owned. So to them, I think they're kind of trained on dealing with investors.
Right.
I don't think a lot of them say, "Hey, listen, I'm a newbie real estate broker, commercial, and just trying to get deals." A lot of them are well versed on what to ask me before they even work with an investor. I've never worked with like a large buyer.
Right.
I've never done commercial real estate. I've done only residential. I'm more of a buyer of commercial real estate.
Right.
But from what my experience in watching them is, they're pretty much well versed on how to screen a proper buyer. So we do a lot of 1031s. So I send them my 1031 documents. Here, we're doing a 1031. I need, I'm a legit buyer. And usually they'll be like, okay, these guys got to move fast. I know they're going to, close. So if you're working with, if somebody comes with a line to any real estate agent, to me, it's like, all right, where's your proof of funds? How serious are you? What are you currently doing? If you're flipping any homes now, can I stop by, take a look at them? So stuff like that to question and screen that potential investor. So that way you're not wasting your time. And again, it's like that goes with any buyer, right? I want to buy a house for $400,000. Have you been pre-approved? Can I speak to your mortgage guy? Can I see your bank statements? Stuff like that, because there's a lot of tire kickers. There's plenty of tire kickers out there. I always say buyers and liars. So
yeah, well, that's the thing that people like to tell agents: buyers are liars, sellers are yellers, right? So
yeah.
All right, so right, so okay.
Yeah.
So I'm a new investor, right? And I'm looking at things. I've got money to spend.
Mm-hmm.
What's better, commercial or residential for me?
If you have no experience, I would go residential. You know what I mean? Okay. Learn to deal with people, learn to deal with different personalities, build a small portfolio, learn to manage. Because, I've seen, there's people, kids that are 25 years old raising millions and millions of dollars and never manage any real estate. And people are giving it to them. They're like, okay, yeah, you find me a property, I'll invest. And then what happens? If it's mismanaged, everyone's losing their shirt. All the LPs are going to lose their shirt.
Right.
So if you don't have that track record, you know what I mean?
Right.
Even though some idiot will give you $5 million and no problem, eventually the shit's going to hit the fan, and then what's going to happen? You know what I mean? Your career is going to be over before you even started.
Exactly.
What's going to happen?
So if I'm looking as a new investor, again, because there's so many people out there watch this broadcast either live or later that they want to be investors, right? And they start thinking about the best advice that you gave. Really, I completely agree with. Not that it matters, but I completely agree with. Residential, 2-family, 3-family. Learn how to do it all.
Yeah.
How about that investment comes along? It's got 2 apartments above a store.
Mm-hmm.
Is that more of a risk, or is that okay?
To me, I don't do a commercial. From what I've seen in the past, depending on what market you're in,
right?
You know what I mean? If the demand is there for commercial real estate, obviously, you run with it. The only thing, commercial real estate, obviously, it's easier to evict, right? They don't pay you. It's much easier for them to get evicted. But on the same turn, that unit will stay vacant much longer to rent out than a residential unit. So there's a far more demand for residential than there is commercial, from what my experience is. But then again, there's, Goldstein Group. All they do is commercial, right? So they know how to place tenants. So if you're an agent or an investor looking to get into that deal, the first thing I would say, maybe hire a mentor. Get a mentor to show you what to do and how to do it. Because no one's going to be like, oh, I want to pick. I get this all the time. I want to pick your brain. I want to pick your brain. I want to pick. I don't got time for you to pick my brain. You know what I mean? It's like, how many times can you pick my brain?
Exactly.
So get someone who wants to mentor you and pay them whatever it is that they want and learn. So and then that way you already have a good basis. That's a solid foundation to learn the entire business. For me, that question is, I would go completely, residential. But commercial, like I said, it all depends on the market area.
So one of the things you said in the beginning is that you talked a little bit about getting a mentor. Tell me about you, Mel, and you have a brokerage of your own. You bring agents in. Are you mentoring them to be investors? How we did have a question, are you, Mel, you mentoring yet? So I wanted to put that up there, right?
Yeah.
So answer that question and what you do and how you do it.
No, I just run my course. I do it's REIfordummies.com. I do it maybe once a year, twice a year, depending on when I got time to do it. I don't mentor one-on-one. I got a few people that, they'll text message me, call me. I help them out. If they want help, I'll help them out. I got no problem with it. Because at the end of the day, if you're willing to help yourself, then obviously you'll get somewhere in life. If I can give you all the advice in the world, if you don't implement it, well, I wasted my breath. So yeah, I don't do much mentoring one-on-one. I'm just too busy right now to do stuff like that. But I have courses that I've done and recorded on how to market, how to find deals, how to analyze deals, construction managing construction management,
Right.
on my website, REIfordummies.com. But yeah, it's, at the end of the day, you have to learn the systems. You have to learn what to do, how to do it, and stuff like that.
So, we've talked about all different kinds of investing and flipping and stuff and getting into real estate and experience and learning so much. How do people get in touch with you if they want to invest with you, if they want to get involved with what Carmelo Oliveri is doing with Ally Capital Management? How do they get in touch with you?
So go to allycapitalmanagement.com. If they want to learn about the investing stuff, they can schedule a consultation, a one-on-one consultation to learn about that. Again, we deal with mostly accredited investors. So
Right.
with an accredited investor, you have to have over $1 million in assets or make over $250,000 a year to invest in our deals, or have some kind of background in investing in deals. And then again, it's just a matter of your risk tolerance also, right? And when you want to get your returns. Because real estate can take a long time. It doesn't happen overnight, right? So if we buy at 150, like the second one we're buying for 7.7 million, that's got, added 186 units, I think maybe 40 are occupied, right? We got to turn the entire property over. But once we're done, it's worth, $10-15 million. So once we underwrite that, we'll figure out the ARV on it, and depending on where the rates go too. So it depends on your risk tolerance as an investor also. You're not going to see this money in 6 months, that's for sure.
So when you talk about risk tolerance, what do you look for? I mean, are you looking for in a range, right? Are you looking for high risk, low risk, moderate risk? Or are you just taking each deal as it comes and deciding whether it makes sense to you or not?
Yeah, we just take the deals as they come. I'm versed in all three aspects of that. I've bought, multifamilies that were completely run down and built them back up to, turnkey properties. So it's just a matter of if it's a great deal, we jump on it, right? And at the end of the day, if it's a great deal, the investors will show up because the returns will be fantastic.
Right.
So every deal we look at, and if it makes sense, we jump on it.
That's great. All right. So we got scrolling on the bottom, allycapitalmanagement.com. Excuse me. Plus your email address, propertyhubrealtors@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Mel, I want to thank you so much for being on this broadcast today. It was really cool of you. I have two things yet before we finish up today. One is a question I ask people that are on this broadcast because everyone has comes on as special and great in their own way. And for me, how can I, Dave Finale, help you, Carmelo Oliveri, grow your business?
Hey, listen, if you have any investors looking to invest and, want to invest alongside us and get some cash flow returns, I think that's the best way is getting, the word out there to some investors. So I think that's the best way of doing it. And I appreciate you having me on here. It's awesome.
Thank you so much, man. And last but not least, you helped me out this week because you came on at short notice and you said, do I get a hat? And here it is, man. Here it is. You're going to get a hat. You and I are going to get together in the next week. I'm going to get you your hat. Awesome. Everybody, I want to thank you so much for coming on and watching this broadcast, whether you watch it live or not. Next week, we have Vanda Martin, who is a master coach, coming on. If you check her out on Instagram, you check her out on Facebook, she's been around for a while. She's just really energetic, and she's going to be on with us next week. And I'm so looking forward to that. Carmelo, just hang out. Let's see if we got any other questions or comments. Thank you, Fatina. Nice to meet you too. And thank you for coming on and watching this broadcast. So we're going to we're going to go out and thank everybody for being on today and watching, and just hang out for a minute. Carmelo, we'll be right back.
Thanks, Dave.